Our lives are a string of insights, flashes of inspiration that can be the catalyst for new ideas. However, our pace of life these days means we tend to miss some of them completely. I'm Dave Hill, and I'm the host of the Simple Reflections podcast, a fortnightly series of interviews with people from all walks of life. Our conversations are an invitation to reflect on some of the simple insights my guests have had that have gone on to have a profound impact on their lives. So grab a cuppa and a biscuit, join us, slow down for a little while and see what shows up for you. Welcome to the next episode of the Simple Reflections podcast. Today I'm joined by Marie Arymar. Marie is a coach, has a small company called Resiliation. I'm just going to stick with coach. I am sorry for this. This is not normal, but anyway, it's all good. Fourth time lucky. Welcome to the next episode of the Simple Reflections podcast. Today, I'm joined by Marie Arymar, a coach from Exeter in the UK. Marie is the author of a book called Do You Want to Know a Secret, which is a lot of fun to read really lovely and simple to get through. And the host of the Precarious Parenting podcast. And while she's normally from Exeter, today she's coming to us from Cyprus. Marie, lovely to have you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
And
well done on the name of my podcast. I'm very impressed.
Yes, we were chatting before I hit record, and I was struggling with my mind wanting to make it the Precocious Parenting podcast. So hence the congratulations there. I've only known Marie probably since the summer, so a couple of months, and we crossed paths through Jamie Smart's world, and yeah, I just thought the work that she's doing, working with mainly mums and their children, trying to help them navigate life collectively in a more comfortable way, was really interesting, and I just thought it'd be lovely to hear a little bit more about that. So I was wondering, what led you from a world of education, and I know you're still involved in that in a little bit, but from that world more into the coaching world and trying to support people outside of the classroom environment?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Thanks, Dave. So I ended up being the pastoral lead of large further education colleges, so 16 to 19-year-olds. And on the pastoral side, it was anything to do with the students' world that wasn't academia. So attendance, motivation, did they want to switch subjects? Did they want to leave? Anything at all. And so my day was, and my team's day was filled with one-to-ones, right? Really trying to listen to the young people and understand what their needs were, although very goal-driven. So I had to set targets. And I noticed that often people, the staff were leading the target setting. And within that, within the confines of having lots of one-to-ones with students, I was having quite a lot of one-to-ones with parents. And, a 16-year-old, we don't have to talk to the parents anymore, but the parents often felt quite lost. So there was a lot of work with parents. And I've had some times where I've had a young person ask me to talk to their parents on their behalf, which is challenging, but really rewarding. When it goes well, that's super rewarding. So actually, finally, I got made redundant from further education because that's what's happened in the austerity cuts. The further education sector got really massively hit. And I just sat there sort of scratching my head thinking, well, now what? And I realized that it's the one-to-one work that I'm so passionate about. And it's the right for any human being to be heard is kind of paramount in my world. And I think what happens with younger people, and I'm a step parent, and the lads lived with us for a long time. And I think it's very easy not to listen to our children, our young humans. because we kind of have our own filter of our own worries and our own needs, and not now, not now, Johnny, whatever it is. And it all comes from an innocent place of love. So I just thought, well, I just got to do more of that. And actually, the book, you mentioned the book, and do you want to know a secret? And it's a little book of resilience and clarity, whatever your age. And it's just a 10-minute read. It's really short, and it's kind of like for 8-year-olds and up. But my business started because I just sat down and wrote it in like a couple of hours. And it just, I don't know where it came from. It just kind of, bleh, it came out. And it was obviously sitting there, and it's got this beautiful diamond on the front. And I wanted parents and young people to have a way of maybe starting a conversation about mental health and well-being, and the fact that we are already okay, even when we don't feel it. So that's how the business started. It started with a book that I didn't even know was there. And it started with the passion that that one-to-one time is just so important for everybody. Me too.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. I was on a call yesterday, and it was looking at how coaching fits in with with the corporate world and various other bits and pieces. And you mentioned cuts and being made redundant and bits and pieces like that. There's a lot of companies that are in the similar sort of place, I suppose, at the moment. And certainly in the UK, we see coaching as a sort of luxury item, something that's beyond the nice to have. It's a sort of, well, that's all bells and whistles, and you can have some cream with that if you want. When actually it's almost, well, it's a necessity, really. It's not something that is that piece on the top. It's that, what are you losing out on by not investing in that way? What is the cost of not doing it? A little bit like, what's the cost of not servicing your car? We can drive on with our eyes shut and hope, but actually there's a benefit to servicing our car, and having people look over that and check on things and bits and pieces, and give us some guidance. Yes, it'll keep going until it doesn't, at which point it's way more expensive to fix.
It's a really good point. And when you're in the situation where, do I buy food or do I pay my electricity bill, it's very different.
Hugely.
But with the austerity cuts that hit the education sector, and particularly the further education sector, and this directly links into what you've just said. But the college counsellors went first, and then pastoral teams went next. And so the teaching staff were the ones who stayed, of course, because they need to teach the classrooms. But it's not seeing that level of support keeps students in the classes. And it's like with the coaching, whether it's corporate coaching or whoever it is, in my world, it's taking that time to have somebody else who isn't mum or dad to talk to that young person without any history or judgment, completely independent. And, what value does that have? So if a young person is really, really caught up in feeling anxiety or feeling they're not good enough or whatever it is, and then after a period of sessions, they feel better about themselves, what value do we put on that? But, I'm having an initial chat with a mum tomorrow, and her first question on the email was, what are your fees? And it's a really good question. But it's a really hard one to answer via email, because let's just explore what we're talking about first. And what she's going to do is she's going to come on the call anyway, because I said, why not? You're going to have a chat. That's got to be a good thing. And so if we think about the monetary side of it, we're just cutting that option off
Yep.
without even exploring any further. So good for this lady for joining me tomorrow, because we'll have a lovely chat, whatever happens after that.
Yeah. And the just using the term investment, most people will automatically jump to some sort of financial thing. But the more I see it, investment is a number of different factors. It's time and energy and brain power potentially, in terms of expanding our horizon. And when we expand our horizon, normally the reward is way larger than we thought it was when we set off. And at the beginning of any form of negotiation around starting up a piece of work, always comes with a, yeah, but what's it going to cost, rather than what are you trying to achieve, what does that look like, what would that, what is that going to get you. And that is normally way beyond the scope of either the client or the coach being able to articulate it, because it's unknown. And
Well,
that's quite exciting.
yeah, I think so. And people sometimes come and they say, "Well, I've got nothing to talk about," and it's like, that's okay, because that's not your job. That's kind of
Mhm.
my job. My job's to lead where we go, and then we just start having a little chat, and next thing we've talked about something that neither of us had any idea was coming, but
Mhm.
it's completely relevant. It's irrelevant to how the mind works, how each of us is seeing that particular moment. It's always relevant, which is really fun,
Yeah.
because I like to think um, my sessions are fun. We might be laughing, there might be some tears, might talk about completely random stuff, but I think, for a person to feel relaxed enough to be able to speak the truths that they didn't even know were there,
Mhm.
there's value right there, just for an hour or 90 minutes or whatever. And that's very precious. And I think everybody, like, my fundamental belief is that we all have inbuilt mental health. That's our starting point. Our homeostasis is that we're already okay, although we can definitely think we're not.
Mhm.
And that can feel very, very real, of course. But I will always push back to the homeostasis that we are actually okay. And then we can explore whatever's going on for us not to feel okay. And that's exciting.
Mhm. Definitely. No, I'm a big believer in inviting people into the idea that everything is all right. It just doesn't look like it at the moment. And when it doesn't look like it, it can really feel like it. That is it. That this is the world as it currently is presenting itself to me, and that's a fact. Um, and when you ask people to just rest that idea for a second and open up a different possibility, and see what comes from that space, that's when things really open up. And yeah, we've both experienced that for ourselves and with our clients, and it's a wonderful gift to be able to help create that for someone,
Mm.
albeit it's them that's doing the creation. And I think that's
Yeah. And that space of feeling okay might be a nanosecond,
mm,
but a nanosecond's better than not having the nanosecond.
mhm,
Because when we literally sit and it's like you and I on this screen right now, and everything might be falling around our ears, but in this absolute moment right now, it's okay. And that's a really solid foundation to
mhm.
then have another thought, another option.
Yeah,
It's lovely.
it is. Um, It's been a year or two since you've written your book, and things have moved on a little bit in your world, I suppose. Um, what's exciting you at the moment? What's fresh and bubbling up that's got your attention right now?
Um, there's a few things. I'm talking to some people about women who feel invisible. And I'm nearly 59 and so have been through the menopause. And it's a really, really interesting time. And one of the things I've contributed to the conversation is the concept of gathering at the well, which women, which is a term for women in tribal situations, where women in maybe less developed countries would go to the well where the water is to wash clothes, gather water for cooking. And the women would go there without men and sometimes with children. And the older women would talk to the younger women, and there'd be some education and some reflection and some sharing, and there'd be real learning there. And the older women are really important. Now, I see mums like that, regardless of their age.
Hmm.
So that's how come I said to you when we were talking before this chat that like more and more and more I'm working with mums, because there seems to me to be a bit of a cycle where the mums are really, really worried about their kids and the kids are really, really worried about their mums. And so each becomes responsible for the other person's well-being. So we're caught in a bit of a cycle.
Hmm.
So I really love talking to mums about how they can step away from their fear and their worry and actually be that. It's a bit of a cliche, Dave, but that lighthouse, the light that people are looking to for guidance. And so that really, really interests me at the moment. I think there's something more there about women understanding their real value in their family and society, as they get older. It's fantastic.
Mm. As you were talking about the sort of the uh, the watering hole, it sort of made me think of the sort of modern day water cooler chat, but on a grander scale, with more people meeting there rather than just a couple of people, um, because those meetings don't have any intention. It's just we all happen to be in the same place at the same time, and what bubbles up from there. It's a genuine conversation based on interest and curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned menopause for a reason because, thanks to people like Davina McCall and, some, people who are really heading up conversations, it was a no-go subject until
Hmm.
really, really recently. And it impacts 50% of our population. And women can really get lost in that perimenopause stage. Uh, they can get very, very confused and low and and actually they are vibrant women with huge experience and something to share to those younger women who are looking up, going, "Oh, okay, this is what's coming up for me.
Hmm.
This is super, super important." So I would say yes, more and more people gathering around the water cooler, but I suspect in my example, it's there's no men.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Sorry, yes, I was being a bit cheeky with my joining up of ideas there. The
Or
crikey,
maybe there are, maybe there are. Who am I to say there's no
yeah,
men?
well,
But the gathering at the well idea is definitely women supporting women, which
mhm,
and there's much more of a wave now for men to support men and wonderful ways for men to talk and you know or share experiences like repair shop charity
mhm,
ideas. And so that idea of the older wiser, maybe that's how I see myself. Maybe I'm the older wiser person trying to support younger families. I have no idea. I suspect that's probably what it is. There's a bit of
mhm.
reflection on the go.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's lovely. I I forget the name of the book, Hannah Studley's book, which has been written about the menopause, um, uh, covers not only that side of things, but also um, postnatal depression and the sort of going through puberty bit. It's all in there, and it was a fascinating read. I I'm a dad of girls.
Mm.
I'm getting to that age where women in my life are starting to go through the menopause, and I've luckily still got my mum around who's been through it on the other side. So there's there's a whole load in there that I am never going to understand because I haven't lived any of it, and I'm only going to pick up stuff from the outside. But still, certainly from my children's point of view, have a role to play in terms of trying to help guide and point them through life as they're going through it. And um, yeah, I found that a really, really useful book to give me a whole load of insight into things that are just not on my radar.
Yeah, and of course, and that's such a great thing for you to say. And of course, when I was 30, perimenopause and menopause wasn't on my radar.
Hmm.
So it's fantastic to hear that that's out there. Another thing that I'm really passionate about, which stays in this realm, is when I got made redundant, I did some work at the University of Exeter for a human genomics master's, which makes me sound very clever, but I was like the admin development side of it. And I'm going to go and do some focus group work for those years. I'm going to lead some focus groups because they have got £8 million worth of funding to investigate menopause, and
Hmm.
they've designed a test that a young woman can take when she starts her periods, 11 years old,
Hmm.
and it will tell her via her genome when she'll hit menopause,
Wow.
which is really, really exciting. You think about career planning, family planning, that's very, very exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting me at the moment. And the real key to it is women being able to um, keep their heads up above all the confusion and the brain fog and everything else that comes with it. And to
Mm.
know that they're still okay, even when their legs won't keep still and, you know, everything else that's going on for them.
Yeah.
Mm.
It.
But Dave, sorry to jump
Mm.
in, but imagine being in a household where the mum is going through perimenopause and the girls are going through adolescence, or the boys too.
Hmm.
And there's hormone charges going,
Yeah, yeah,
and
everywhere.
men don't get away with it. It's just that we're not talking about men's menopause yet, but we will. Another 10 years, we'll be talking about
I'm on pause most of the time.
that. Very good. I like what
Sorry,
you did there.
sorry. Um, yeah. No, it's like I think suppose it's like most things really. If you are if it's not on your radar, it's not something you're aware of, you go through life trying to do the best with what you've got in front of you, and that might not be the most helpful thing on the planet. But actually, when you have a deeper understanding about whatever topic that might be, it broadens your perspective and also it reduces the the sort of fear anxiety response because you have some knowledge about something that you probably don't know completely deeply, but you know that there's somewhere you can go and either someone you can ask or something you can go and look up and learn a little bit more rather than being completely blind to it. And that's sort of how I see my role, both when I was a soldier leading people. Um, I didn't know everything, but that wasn't my role to know everything. It was just my role to know what I was supposed to be able to get my head around and who could answer the questions, and spend my time trying to find out people that could answer questions for me, not because I needed those answers right now, because I might need them in the future, and to know which door to go and knock on. And I've seen that sort of spill out, I suppose, of my military career into the various jobs that I've done since leaving the army, in through being a parent, into to the world of coaching now. Uh, I see the role that you and I play is basically being explorers, going around, trying out things, testing ideas, absorbing thoughts and playing around with them, testing them out, learning a little bit more, and not necessarily going into depth of it, but going, okay, right, if something comes up about that, I know where I can go and ask that question based on my grounding of what I know to be true for me and for everybody else from my current vantage point. And that's quite cool because in a world that is time poor, the vast majority of people don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to be able to go off and do those exploratory wanderings without seriously considering it.
Mm.
Um, the way I'm seeing it more and more is coaches are a little bit like guides on the Serengeti in that sense. You're not I can't think of the right word, but you're not a tour guide, but you're taking people out into the bush, knowing how the local environment works, knowing what might be out there, but not knowing whether you're going to see it. But because you have
Mm.
a little bit more knowledge, you have a better chance of being able to lead people into a position where they might see something exciting. And I see
Yeah,
that's the role that you and I have.
yeah. Yes, and I love to play the I wonder game. So, we'll often end up in a conversation where we'll start a sentence with I wonder and we won't answer it. And because that leads to curiosity.
Mhm.
And as soon as we become curious about a situation, we become more compassionate to the situation. And it's interesting because something you said in that last bit got me thinking about something that was so important to me was realizing it was such a deep insight, and it wasn't like something that hit me over the back of the head and knocked me sideways. It was like a real drip drip drip
Mhm.
Chinese water torture. And I finally realized that things weren't personal to me, things weren't happening because of me or down to me, or that person wasn't angry because of something I'd done. And that was so liberating. And going back to families, one of the podcasts I've done is with an author called Nicola Morgan, and she wrote a book called Blame the Brain, Blame My Brain, The Amazing Teenage Brain. And it's a book written for teenagers, so it's neuroscience for teenagers, but I don't know many teenagers who've read it. Parents read it.
Mhm.
And it's like, and I came across it when our lads were like 15 and 13, and I did not know what the hell was going on at home. They were my stepsons. And like, there's slightly different rules, I think, when you're a step parent. And I didn't have a clue. Anyway, I found this book. It's so unbelievably helpful. You're talking about guiding in the Serengeti. It's like, well, maybe what you're talking about your child, maybe their behavior is down to their brain development stage and not anything to do with you at all. In fact, maybe you're not even registering in their stratosphere. It's not nice to hear as a parent, but if we think
Mhm.
back to our own childhoods, we would go out all day and not think about our parents. We'd be off doing our own thing. So I love that. I love the idea of being a guide, taking people, unknown places or places we don't, neither none of us knows what the answers are.
Mhm.
But when we look with curiosity, I mean, Ted Lasso said it. I don't know if you've watched Ted Lasso. I
I've
think
not,
I've
no,
seen,
but I've heard about it.
I think I may have watched the whole lot 4 times, which is a bit sad. But there's one point where he just says, it's something like, if you were just more curious and less judgmental, it might have been different, and it's like, yeah, if we can just drop the judgment, what about me? It's not fair. And that's my go-to. Like my go-to statement is, it's not fair. There's a real sort of, I don't like the word victim, but there's a real victim
Mhm.
speaker inside of me. And then the liberty in knowing that actually it's absolutely nothing to do with me and they're just on their own journey. It, then we can start to really explore.
Mm. There's something, that I think the there is value in the it's not that it's not fair thought, and it's just a bit trying to grab our attention and reminding us we're taking it too personally. The more I've looked at everything being of value to me, even if it's telling me that everything's rubbish, what is that trying to help me with at the moment? What am I missing here? Um, that just experiencing that thought invites me to be curious, which it gets me back on track again, I suppose, and helps me gain a clearer perspective of what's actually going on rather than where my mind has jolted me into.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that the concept of it's not fair comes from a story that I've developed for myself based on a mother and stepdads, numerous, um, being too busy in their own worlds, being very caught up in the decisions that they made, which may have been good, may have been bad, I don't know, whatever. And me feeling unheard led me to a story which is life's not fair. Why me? Why not me? That kind of thing. And when I hear myself, and sometimes I don't, Dave, sometimes I get into that dialogue, that inner dialogue, and I miss it. And I go down the rabbit hole of it's not fair. And at some point,
At some point, you hear it.
I'll hear it. And it's like, oh, okay, I've got really busy in that old story. And it literally is almost because I'm such a visual person. It literally is almost me with my finger up going, aha. And that's super helpful because I'm out of the rabbit hole and I'm somewhere else. I don't know where that somewhere else is, but it's not the rabbit hole.
Yep.
And that's where I can be curious. And it might be like that. It might be an hour. It might be 2 days. I have no idea, but I know, and that's a gut feeling. I know that's going to come. That's very reassuring.
Yeah, hugely.
Mm,
I was having a conversation with a veteran probably maybe 6 or 7 years ago, actually. Um, very, very switched on, very capable, very driven, working really, really hard, uh, doing a really high-powered job, um, with a young family and trying to keep all of those things on the straight and narrow, whilst also completely falling apart inside.
mm,
So that more plates spinning than you could possibly imagine,
mm,
and he thought there was something completely wrong with him. That he was doing his level best to keep all this stuff together, and occasionally it would spill out, and everything would go horribly wrong, and he'd end up leaving that job and going to another one and starting the whole process again until the pressure built
mm,
up and it would all crumble again. And during, we sat down and had breakfast together, I think. And during that conversation, one color came back into his cheeks, which was nice to see. But
mm,
two, the lights came back on. He There was some life back in him that hadn't been there at the start of the conversation. And when we walked outside, he said, "For the first time in a long time, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel." Um,
wow.
and he then followed that up with, "It's been 8 or 9 years of getting to this point, so it's probably a similar amount of time to get myself out of it." And I just said, "Or not." And that just turned the lights right on. And he gave me a massive hug and said, "Yeah, that's true too."
Mm,
And that's what we're talking about. You were talking about being in a rabbit hole. the rabbit hole is something that we've created in our mind, and it might feel miles deep. But as soon as another thought comes along that gives us a different scenario, we are in a completely different place. It doesn't matter how far down the rabbit hole we are, we can be in absolute paradise in the flick of a switch with a new thought that comes along. And
Yeah, and without any of the circumstances changing one
absolutely,
jot.
yeah, nothing in the
Mm,
outside world changing,
mm,
everything in our mind changing based on how we view something, and that
mm,
we are the creators of all of that.
mm. Yeah. And I flick flack. I used to think, oh, just wait for this one insight and it's going to change everything. But I can have those moments of clarity and then I'm straight back there again. And then I
Yeah,
have the moment of clarity and then I'm back there again. And then I can berate myself for being back there again. And and it's about being kind. My book. Can I show you an illustration in my
yeah,
book?
please
I
do.
it just I don't know if it will actually show, but I have quite a bit about being kinder to ourselves.
Hmm.
And it's like that's the definition of me being kind to myself is me letting myself off my own thinking
Mm,
or letting myself off flick-flacking up and out of the rabbit hole. Just
yeah,
let myself off the hook.
absolutely. I had a really lovely conversation with Bill Pettit once, and he was talking about um, there's always been of a line of what's best for him. And what used to happen is he would be meandering across it and occasionally experience it, but most of the time be one side or the other, and fleetingly passing through it. And what he's noticed with time and experience and getting curious is that his wobbles are much, much more subtle now. He still strays off it, but he catches himself quicker because he's more attuned to what's going on. And so what he said, it's not that he feels less now, he feels more. And as a result of feeling more, he is able to experience being present more of the time.
Mm.
And I thought that was a really lovely way to explain it because it's certainly been my experience over the last 8 or 9 years of playing around in this sphere of realizing that it doesn't matter what the hell's going on in the world. Um, my my personal experience of that is mine to create. And if I'm having an unpleasant time, it's got nothing to do with what's out there and everything to do with how I'm seeing it right now. And that's the invitation to see what else I might see.
I really love that. And I love what you said about Bill Pettit because I had this vision of a pendulum and the swing is going in an arc to and fro. But here is being present, being in the flow, being in the moment, whatever you want to call it, being. And and if our pendulum is swinging backwards and forwards and we're literally flick-flacking, we've got to be passing through being present
Mhm.
constantly. And it always settles back down. The swing will always settle and it will always settle back there.
Well, the pendulum's even tethered to the moment at the top. So
Yeah,
even
true.
when we're not experiencing it, we're still tethered to it.
Oh, I love that. We're making our own metaphor
I
up.
know that's the best thing about this game is making stuff up that makes
Yeah,
sense to you, and being comfortable with it just being yeah being something to pull apart, see what's true in it.
yeah, I love that.
This has been a lot of fun, Marie. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Is there anything that you've got coming up towards the back end of the year that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Um, Not really. I haven't got any group things or anything like that lined up. I would invite anybody to listen to Precarious Parenting because it's a free resource. And it's real people talking about real stories and how they got through them. And it always comes back to love and hope. And and I would say if anybody's got a story, because I don't go out hunting for guests. Guests find me. I have lots of people who say, I want to sell a book and I want to sell my coaching. I'm actually really interested in the personal story, and that's what
Hmm.
you'll see on there. So I would encourage anybody if they want to share a story, and it can be anonymous, it doesn't matter. And it's just audio, it's not
Cool.
video. Um, and yeah, my book is on Amazon. It's print on demand. There are some reflections at the back, some reflective questions, and which are quite new. And there are three of my favorite quotes in there, which I look at. But I would really encourage anybody, grandparents, parents, if you want to get a message across to some younger people, then it's a really, really, really lovely way to do it.
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
very passionate about that book. It's got its little journey. I'm never going to retire on it, but it doesn't matter because uh, it's out there doing its thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what's important. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, well, it was Bill actually that introduced me to your book.
is
So
that
there you
right?
go. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can't remember where when I was speaking to him about it, or when I was speaking to him, or what about, but he brought it up and shared it. So it's
That's really nice to hear.
yeah,
Right,
these
we're
things.
going to end this conversation there because that's like, Hollywood.
He's a lovely chap. But
Yeah,
he also is very good at giving out book references.
yeah, that's
So
great. Yeah.
he was a big fan of it. So and that's the reason I bought it and read it and enjoyed it. So yeah.
Well, I didn't even know he'd seen it, so that's good
There you,
news.
well, it's upstairs. I meant to have it with me so I could wave it in front of you today, but it's up there.
I did that. It's also in German, my book.
Mm, there you
Yeah.
go.
So, and it might be in Italian and another language that I can't remember. People offer to translate it. So
Amazing.
that's why it's on print on demand, so it can be easily done.
There we go. So if anybody out there wants it in their language, get in touch with Marie and see if you want to translate it.
Why not? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. It's been lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for coming along.
No, it's my absolute pleasure.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed the conversation, feel free to subscribe and join me and my new guests next time. If you're interested in the work I'm doing, or you think I can be of service to you or your organisation, please email dave@simplicityofmind.co.uk. Remember, see if you can find time to slow down and reflect. Those simple ideas might be worth listening to. Take care, and I hope you can join me in a couple of weeks.